So how does a big jumble of raw, messy data get turned into a clean, powerful report that can actually change a company's direction? Well, it's not magic. It's a process. A journey, really. And right at the center of it all is the data analyst. Let's map out that journey together.
We always see that polished final product, the slick chart, the clear dashboard. But the real story, the adventure, is in that journey from chaos to clarity. The real magic is taking something that just looks like, well, nonsense, and finding the treasure hidden inside. And that, right there, is the whole idea for this explainer. We're going to frame this as a quest. You're the hero, and your mission is to find, tame, and totally transform data. Our adventure begins with learning to recognize our target out there in the wild.
Okay, so your first challenge on this quest, identification. Data doesn't just walk up and introduce itself, right? It's usually in disguise, hiding in different file formats that totally control how you can work with it. Understanding these is absolutely the first step to mastering it.
All right, the most common disguise you're going to run into is something called a delimited file. Just think of it as data that comes with built-in instructions. A special character, which we call a delimiter, acts as a divider. The most popular one by far is the CSV, or comma-separated values file, where every single comma is basically shouting at the software, hey, start a new column right here.
And this is where you see the magic happen. Look at this. On the left, you open that CSV in a simple text editor, and it's just a wall of text and commas. It's a mess. But open that exact same file in a spreadsheet program, and bam, just like that, the commas do their job, and you get this perfectly organized table. That's the power of a proper file format. Okay, another key term you gotta know is a flat file. When you export data from some system, you're almost always creating a flat file. I want you to think of it like taking a photograph. You're capturing a snapshot of the data at one specific moment in time. It's static. If the original database gets updated 5 minutes later, your photo doesn't change. You have to go back and take a whole new one. All right, so you know what data looks like out in the wild. The big question now is, where do you actually find it? This is the next stage of our quest, the great data hunt. Sometimes the data you need is already out there, just waiting for you to discover it. Believe it or not, there are these incredible public treasure troves of data just waiting for you. Governments often have to make their data public, so sites like the US Census Bureau are absolute gold mines for things like population data. And then you've got awesome community platforms like Kaggle, where you can find fascinating data sets for practice on pretty much anything, from machine learning to sports. The key is just knowing where to look. But of course, what's a good quest without a locked door, right? The treasure is locked away. You can't just download a file. You need like a special key or a secret password to get the data you need from another piece of software. And that's where this brilliant little thing called an API comes in. Honestly, the restaurant analogy is the best way to think about it. You don't just barge into the kitchen yourself to get your food, right? No, you give your order to a server, that's the API, who then goes to the kitchen for you and brings back exactly what you asked for. It's how different software systems can talk to each other and share data in a really controlled, orderly way. So, what happens when you've searched everywhere and the data you need just doesn't exist? Well, a true analyst doesn't give up. No, they forge their own tools, and they create the data themselves. This is a really big moment in any analyst's journey. This is where you stop being a hunter and you become a creator. And one of the most powerful ways to create original data is through surveys, literally just asking people for the information you need. Now, making your own data from scratch might sound like a huge, daunting task, but you can actually break it down into these 4 pretty clear steps. It always starts with one focused question. From there, you design your survey, you figure out exactly who you need to ask, and then you just go out and collect the responses. It's a very methodical process of creation. And when you're designing it, every single word matters a lot. Just look at this question. How awesome was your customer service today? See that? The word awesome, that's a leading question. It's already nudging the person towards a positive answer. This kind of thing creates biased, totally unreliable data. A great analyst knows that crafting neutral, super clear questions is absolutely essential. Okay, awesome. You've found your data. You might have even forged some yourself. So now you have your raw materials. But you can't just leave them lying around in a pile. You need a secure, organized place to store everything. You need a vault. Well, in our world, in the world of data, that vault is called a database. And inside, you have these super organized strongboxes called tables. This is where your data is going to live, all structured with neat rows and columns, just ready for you to access and analyze it.
So, how do you actually build this vault? Well, you use a language like SQL, and there are 3 really basic commands to get started. Create is your command to build a brand new table. Alter lets you modify one that's already there, maybe add a new column or something. And drop, yeah, that's the big red button. Use it carefully because it deletes the whole thing for good. These are your foundational blueprints for storing data.
All right, we are getting close to the end of our quest. You've acquired the raw data and stored it safely. But think about it. When you find raw gems, they're not ready to be put in a crown, right? They're dirty, they're rough, they need to be cut, cleaned, and polished. And this is the final and maybe the most important stage. And that's the thing about raw data. It is always messy. It's got errors, typos, weird formatting, missing values. It's a mess. The transformation from that raw material into a valuable asset is where the real work and the real magic happens. So, this whole polishing process has a name. We call it ETL. It stands for Extract, Transform, and Load. First, you extract the data from wherever it lives. Then comes the crucial transform step, which is where you clean it, reshape it, and get it all ready. And finally, you load that polished, analysis-ready data into its final home, like a data warehouse. But of course, technology never stands still, right? So there's a modern twist on this called ELT, Extract, Load, Transform. Notice the difference? The L and the T are flipped. Here, you load all the raw data into a flexible storage system first, and then you transform it later as you need it. This is super common with massive data sets in what we call data lakes. And when we talk about that L, the loading part, there are really 2 main ways it happens. The very first time, you do what's called a full load. That's moving every single piece of data over. But after that, you usually do delta loads, which are way more efficient because they only bring over what's new or what's changed since the last time. And after all of that, the hunting, the forging, the building, the polishing, you finally arrive here. You've taken all these different files and API calls and survey results, and you've brought them all together into one single, cohesive, powerful data set. The quest is complete. Your data is ready. This whole process, the ability to turn raw, messy information into a powerful insight, that is a serious superpower. So, now that you know the path, there's really only one question left to ask. What question are you going to answer first?